very short order. This is the incredible Lockheed U-2S. Welcome back to Riyadh. It's been great to be here and great to see the unit flying again. But let's talk about the configuration of this aircraft. This isn't something we've seen in a flying program before. Now, what you're seeing today is multiple sensors as a good look on an operational mission. We've got signals intelligence on board, which you see in the booms that are on the wings. Those are not fuel tanks, but actually where the mission equipment lies. Looking and listening as we do. The imagery sensor on the nose, synthetic aperture radar, and the data link on the back of the airplane. It's a small satellite dish in that teardrop shape that takes the information that comes into the airplane and puts it through a satellite architecture to a ground station where they can disseminate the information to the appropriate commanders. Another unique thing that you're never going to see in another air show is a gear up pass. This then, I believe, is the senior span pod, isn't it? Well, there's span is larger than super pods. That's right, super pods on the wings. What about the nose configuration of this one? I know they carry different examples of that as well. There are different noses that you can put on the airplane, which is one of the things that adds to the complexity of landing the airplane, because sometimes the nose is longer than it is on other missions. So with the EOIR, the electrical optical infrared imagery sensor on the nose, it's a bit shorter than the one you'd see with the synthetic aperture radar, which is a much longer nose. When you fully land the airplane with a synthetic aperture radar, you can't see the runway because the nose is so long it tilts out as you go to land on the tail wheel that it completely hides the runway, which is why the mobile officer is there to assist in landing. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. Is it still the Dodge Charger that's used as the chase car? The Interceptor package that we use with the police in the United States. Yeah. That's right, Dodge Charger. Yeah. So just explain what's going on here in the display. So today, what we just saw was just a normal takeoff being brought around to the gear up pass, which, as I said before, is something you're not going to see in any other air show, because we typically leave the gear down. After the gear up pass, we're going to a high key. This is going to be a no-flap, simulated flame-out approach. So what's happening now is the pilot is simulating that the engine has failed and a loss of hydraulics, which aids in drag of the airplane. Now, while the aircraft is in mission fit for this demonstration, I'm expecting that the pilot is not in mission fit himself in terms of what he's wearing in the cockpit.
So because the pilot isn't going to be going above Armstrong's line today, he will not be in, as we call it, a space suit, but he will be in just a classic flight suit. He's going to look like every other pilot, unfortunately for him. So the profile that you're seeing now is what the U-2 would be doing if it had an actual flame out. The drag that you're seeing is simulating the drag of the loss of the thrust. So really the U-2 is a glider with an engine on it, and which is why it would be able to glide from that current position all the way back to the runway.
This absolutely incredible design, conceived, as I say, in the 1950s by Clarence Kelly Johnson, the legendary boss of the Skunk Works Advanced Development Project team at Lockheed. And of course, it was necessary to achieve optimum performance for the sort of long endurance, high altitude reconnaissance missions that this aircraft, right from the outset, was conceived to fly. I believe here we're going to see the chase car really coming into play again. So what will the pilot be hearing from the chase car as he makes this low approach?
As the pilot's approaching the runway, the car will be driving on the runway unless they're doing a static call, and they'll be talking the pilot down. Now, what they're doing there is they're telling the pilot how far above the runway they are, typically from 10 feet down to the runway. And we count down in 2s, 10, 8, 6, and so on. The rate at which the mobile officer is making those calls tells the pilot a lot as to how he needs to react. And he's more than just a radar altimeter. You can tell the pilot more left rudder, less left rudder.
And there we can see the car entering the runway. This started out as not a US Air Force program, but under the control of the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, and it was in the spring of 1956 that CIA-operated U-2s first came to Britain, being stationed temporarily at RAF Lakenheath under the cover of undertaking weather research, but they were never operational. Later, they were deployed to Milton Hall
Research, as we like to call it, and it's almost entirely a different aircraft because of its size difference. With that 40% larger capability, you can haul 4,000 pounds of equipment over 70,000 feet and stay there for up to 12 hours.
And the 99th ERS very much on call all the time for real-world operations.
Absolutely. The 99th is extremely busy, as are all the U-2 squadrons around the world. You can bet that there is a U-2 airborne 24/7, 365 somewhere in the world.
Now, I just heard the pilot telling the tower that this is going to be a full-stop landing on this approach.
This will be a full-stop landing, so you should see the chase car getting up right next to the airplane as it's landing, with the mobile officer providing those directive and informative calls down to touching down of that very fragile aircraft.
And let's just reflect on the fact that when they return from operational missions, the pilots will be doing so in the, quote, space suit, and after a sortie that could last for 10 hours or more.
That's absolutely right. So that pilot, after a long sortie, is definitely feeling the fatigue of sitting in one spot for that long. And the aid of your wingman in the car being able to assist you, it really helps and can get you through some real sticky situations with bad weather and things that can really jeopardize any flighting operation.
So, touching down now after an incredibly rare demonstration, the Lockheed U-2S of the 99th Expeditionary Reconnaissance Squadron, US Air Force. And I think we all agree, long may these aircraft stay here, Popeye.
Long may the dragon may reign.
An aircraft that has outlived so many of Kelly Johnson's other creations for the Lockheed Skunk Works, and justifiably so. Such is the capability it continues to provide. As the aircraft rolls past here, what's the tail art we can see on it?
The tail art you're seeing is the 99th Expeditionary Reconnaissance Squadron's Friday patch.
Ah,
it's a dragon with a top hat sipping a cup of tea.
very nice indeed. And people can get up close to one in the more standard fit in the static park.
That's right. The clean airplane is that we usually use for pattern operations is over in static, and you can absolutely go take a look at that.
And again, where else will you see that? They can also take a look at your aeroplane.
It happens to be sitting fairly close by.
It's a 1939 Fairchild Marcus.
That's right.
People didn't know. Well, Popeye, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Do thank the crew who put on that demonstration, and we hope the wind conditions are suitable for a repetition tomorrow.
We'll see. Let's hope it does.
Scott Thompson there, helping me talk through a tremendous exhibition of the U-2S.
Obviously not that loud,
The very embodiment of our Eyes in the Skies theme at React, the U-2 just of course needing to be assisted off the runway. Fascinating to see the aircraft's configuration close up, with that bicycle type undercarriage, with the nose and the main gear mounted on the fuselage, those little pogo outriggers on the wings. A challenging but very rewarding aircraft to fly. One that's